What's going on, guys? It's Nate with. He's already fucked it up. Jesus Christ, dude. Like,
Hey, it's been a while, so we have to make these
yes,
mistakes. We were on time, so we had to screw up some other way just to make things even. Of
yes.
course, I'm the one that's actually streaming this because Nate decided to destroy his Twitch channel because he's the artist formerly known as Kane Bringing the Pain, now known as Nate, even though his YouTube channel, which we have featured there under his name, is Kane BTG. But of course, I'm Anthony, but you already knew that.
You're who?
Anthony!
Oh, yeah, Anthony.
Yeah, shut up.
So, it is in 7 day. What's in 7 day, Anthony?
It's November 7th.
Yep. So, that's it. Peace. No.
Alright.
In 7, for anybody who doesn't know, is a way of basically commemorating Mass Effect because N7 was the part of the special group that Shepard was in, and Mass Effect's just fucking awesome. So we gotta fucking commemorate it, right?
Damn straight. And even though everybody already knows that we're both big, huge BioWare fanboys, kind of, I'm dyslexic today. It happens. That you are definitely more in the camp of Mass Effect as to where I'm more in the camp of Dragon Age.
Yep.
So, but either way, we both enjoy both games, or at least I enjoy Mass Effect. I don't know how you feel about Dragon Age.
I was about to say, like, whoa, slow down there,
And
buddy.
it's definitely been whether people want to agree with us or not, a revolutionary title in several ways. So it's definitely amazing that the community can come together in such a way for N7 Day to celebrate BioWare, the community, and just Mass Effect in general.
Yes, and even like I the one thing I guess will like kind of really shine through here is that me and Anthony see eye to eye on the ending of Mass Effect 3. So it's not going to be like Mass Effect 3 ending bashing here because personally I got it. I enjoyed it the first time around. So did Anthony. So
Even
it's
before the extended cut.
exactly. So
We will be
that
discussing it though. There just won't be a
yeah,
lot of like infighting, like, oh no, you're an idiot because of this, or
exactly.
oh no,
Like
you're a
no, it's
goddamn
silly.
troll.
We need to send more cupcakes. No, no.
If anything, people will probably go ahead and spam this video once it's up on the YouTubes
Yeah.
about, oh, you guys are idiots. The ending was awful. You guys should feel bad
This is
because it
fucking
was.
Bioware fanboys. But I mean, I wouldn't even say I'm a fanboy of Mass Effect, but I am definitely a big fan of Mass Effect. It goes without saying that it's my favorite game series of all time. Um, and a lot of that has to do with just the fact that it's a role-playing game, which I'm heavily into role-playing. It's sci-fi,
Oh, we're
and
actually
it's
streaming
out in
now.
space. Like that's fucking everything that I could like want in a game. That's well, I wouldn't say everything, but almost everything I could want in a game. Mass Effect did it, like throughout the entire trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, you had the whole expansive universe. You had so much lore that people still don't even know all of it without having to read through all the codex, which in itself would just take hours alone. Even just from the first game, the exploration, the conflict, the choices, the races, just even some of the things that they tackled as far as real life subjects that they managed to weave into the game itself is just great.
And like I said, I mean, definitely a big fan of the series, but I'm not going to white knight it or anything like that because one of the things that had always bugged me about the series was everybody spoke English. Like every race in the entire galaxy spoke English. Like, what?
Hey, if you think about it, that's kind of like how the world is here on Earth. Well, I shouldn't say everybody speaks English. That'd be a pretty ignorant statement. But you do see how a lot of other countries have classes and they promote learning English as a language versus here we're kind of like, oh, we have these other language classes, but they're not important.
Well, I mean, like if you use us as an example to start all cultures, even the different cultures that speak English, they have their own accent to it. But in Mass Effect, it was just everybody spoke perfect English.
Even the Elcor.
Their dialect,
Or the
though. Well, I
Hanar.
guess that would be the oh my god, and the fucking Hanar, dude. The Hanar. This
You
one speaks
stupid
the best
jellyfish.
English.
I
Oh,
loved that so much, you big stupid jellyfish. I was waiting for that line for like all the entire Mass Effect series. I was so glad to see that actually got in there.
but again, it's not to say that that's a big issue, but I mean overall, it's I still like even to this day, I still do playthroughs of it, and like I'm constantly still discovering new things that I've not seen before, whether it's in Mass Effect 1, 2, or 3. And that really just speaks, just on worlds about BioWare in general as a developer. You know, the worlds they create is so in depth. There's no possible way you can play any one of their games one time and see everything there is. There's no way you
No,
can
it's
do it.
it's it's impossible. Like I'm not usually I don't use that word. I typically use improbable. But no, it's impossible to play a BioWare game and go through only one playthrough and have experienced everything or done everything. And that's also, in my opinion, what makes a great game is some kind of replayability. And what BioWare games tend to have in terms of replayability is these choices, these different experiences you have every single time.
And yes, Conrad Werner is the best character in the Mass Effect series, confirmed.
He should, you know what? The original storyline of Mass Effect 3, funny enough, is Conrad Werner was actually supposed to take Shepard's place.
I would have
I'm totally making that up, but
See, I would have fucking died. Like I'd have been like, "It's done, man. Game
they
over.
ruined it, man.
I'm sending more fucking cupcakes."
Which is actually funny because we for N7 Day, there was a fellow podcasting group known as the Dialogue Wheel, and they had Chibis Made of Themselves by a very talented artist. And I was like, well, I don't even know what character I'd be. So I pulled it to the people, and they're all like, oh, it ended up being Garrus for the most part, which kind of pissed off Rasmus. But it was funny because a few people, starting with Dan, said you're totally Conrad Werner. I'm like, I hate all of you. Block, block, block.
Which is funny because my POV for this whole podcast has an image with your name with a pic of fucking Conrad Werner.
I hate you so much. I
But
kind of
it's
figured that was
got
gonna
it's
be it.
got your little like your avatar, and it's got
You
the light
photoshopped the
light
face
on
on it.
hair. So it looks like if you was Conrad Verter just with a goatee and shit. Like it's perfect. It's great.
I
I
hate
love
you.
it.
I'd block you, but you're not even on the Twitters anymore.
I am not. I am not.
But yeah, I
But
mean, that's what's great about Mass Effect is we can just keep going on and on and on about the entire series and how much it's even evolved. Like the first game, they definitely listen to a lot of the feedback that comes from the fans and the community. The first one, a lot of people were very upset, not so much with the exploration of the Mako, but it's just the tank controls, which I never had any issues with. I'm more likely going to even have videos of me going up like sheer 90-degree mountainsides, and it's going to be hilarious. But the exploration was a lot of fun, which was unfortunately sorely missed in some of the other games. But we may actually see it in the new Mass Effect, but we'll probably discuss that later, anyways.
yeah, and like oh, BioWare is always has always been really good about listening to the community, and un- I hate to say unfortunately, but I mean it really is kind of unfortunate that that's also their Achilles heel too. They want to please their community, their fans as much as possible, but sometimes they don't draw the line between. I mean, they do in some cases, but they don't in some cases. Like it's trying to find that fine line between we want to make you guys happy, but we also got to stay true with what our vision is. And in some cases, it's been aggravating to see some of the things that they've implemented in the games to please the community, such as the elevators in Mass
Yeah,
Effect 1. I personally I didn't have an issue with the elevators because as a conscious player, I was listening to the PA system where it was actually
Oh yeah,
you
like the news
one
stories
you
and
achieve
everything.
missions. Yeah, and then like when you I believe it was I think it was after you did the Pharos mission and you was in the elevators. It was basically like they completely cover up the whole thing about the Thorian being there. Like basically they just like they I don't even remember what all crap they came up with, but basically they completely covered it up.
Oh yeah,
But if you listen to it, you're like, oh my God, like all this crazy stuff happened. There's this giant plant that's freaking influencing people and making them sick and stuff, and they just like wrote it off as some BS. Like
government
that's what it
cover-ups,
added to the game, but people were like, I don't want to
council
ride in the
governments.
elevators.
But
Yeah,
yeah, no, and see, that's what I really appreciated about the elevators. Funny enough, as it says, we're actually talking about why we appreciate elevators in Mass Effect. But yeah, there's that nice little that little nuance that they had with the elevators. It really added depth to the story in a sense, because like you said, they would either have like cover-ups or news likes to spin things in certain ways to please either their listeners or whoever they're tailored to. But what was really cool too is if some people pay attention is you'd actually get missions sometimes just from
yeah.
listening to those news things that kind of come on. Although I will say it was kind of funny, and I did appreciate the kind of joke that they did with Miranda's loyalty mission when you're on the elevator and it's going too damn slow, so she overrides it and gets pissed off and even points out about the slow elevator. So it's kind of like a joke, making fun of themselves for having it. But
And
yeah,
that's and like and again, I don't want to harp too much, but then in Mass Effect 2, they started with the load screens. Like,
lots of load screens. I'd rather have all the elevators in the world than all those load
I
screens.
would love to have elevators opposed to the freaking load screens. Oh, but I digress. But I mean, there's definitely things that they've listened to that the community wanted that is definitely welcome that they added in the other games, such as one of the big gripes that I had with like Mass Effect 2 was it felt way too focused on the action and the gun combat. Where in Mass Effect 3 they brought back more of um, more I don't say more powers, but they made them more predominant in Mass Effect 3 than
They
I thought
brought
they
back
were
more of
in
the role
2.
play element of it
Yeah,
versus the straight out flat gunplay, which
yeah.
and that again it just goes to show that they listen to the community because then everybody's like, oh well you did it too much. They kind of dialed it back, and three was like that nice little in between of the two games. And
That and three, like not a lot of people talked about it, but I thought it was great the fact that they had in there where if you did want to play it just as a straight action game, like you can choose that at the beginning of the game and you don't choose any dialogue, you don't level up or anything, you just play it like an action game, or you can play it as a straight up RPG. Like they gave you that option in the game. Like and I it was funny that like not a lot of people actually like pointed that out, but I was like,
like
that's
not even the reviews it
awesome.
was really mentioned that often.
Yeah,
But yeah, I did appreciate that they gave people that option. I guess I kind of almost forgot about it too because I'm like, no, give me the RPG. I want the talkie talkie.
I mean, yeah, by default, I'm gonna go with the RPG, but it was just nice that instead of making the game one way or another, they definitely want to accommodate more players and bring more people in because EA, blah 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 blah, whatever. But they found a good way of doing that, so everybody's is able to be pleased by that, and I hope they implement something like that in all future BioWare games.
Absolutely. But even then, it's just the amount of choice. And I know to a lot of people, especially because we're going to get to the Mass Effect 3 endings, the word choice tends to be kind of a joke in a lot of people's eyes. But there were. I mean, we really couldn't sit here and have different discussions as far as what choices we made. We would all come to the same conclusion if there was no choice. It's the beauty of it. We all have our own story. Each of us is Shepard. We all have our own stories to tell, and that's one thing that cannot be argued, no matter how hard anybody wants to try. That's one thing I greatly appreciate from not only BioWare, but also from Mass Effect as a game. Because Mass Effect did come out before Dragon Age, so of course it was what I kind of played, and it really did kind of set the standard for a lot of future iterations of RPGs in general. And it was also a huge risk on BioWare's part because it was one of the not first game that tried to do RPG and shooting, but it was the first successful game that made that attempt. They really found the right blend between the two to really make it work and get not only people who are RPG players, but people who are also third person, first person shooter players to kind of enjoy this game. It kind of pulled something that's difficult because when you make a game that's going to be a hybrid, you're not really going to appeal to everybody, but they managed to find a way to appeal at least to the majority of all the kinds of players.
Yeah, because I mean, when it came out, the whole RPG hybrid, there was definitely other games that did it, but there wasn't that many at the time. Um, Probably like the biggest one, at least to me, that was like action RPG hybrid. That was actually really good and enjoyable. Was like the original Deus Ex,
Yeah.
and like Mass Effect One. I don't think people like. Honestly, there is some, but I think people forget like how influential that game was, just in the fact that one, like you said, it blended action and role playing really well, and also out of the gate they said this is going to be a trilogy. The decisions you make in this game, in Mass Effect, you're going to see repercussions of those decisions at the end. Once you play the last game, you're going to see how that decision influences all that. And like you said, a lot of people neglect to actually really acknowledge that it does. The decisions you make in the first game definitely does influence what happens in the last game. It might
Yeah.
not influence it the way they wanted it to or anything like that, but it does. It influences it. And that's not, I don't know, I can't really think of very many other games that was in a trilogy that literally the choices you made just it trickled all the way through the trilogy.
Or even just in the same game. Even around that time, I can't really even think of any games around that time that did that. Even to this day, those kind of games, even just in the same game itself, are few and far in between. Like you see the constant references, you see characters talk about things that you've done in previous games, or it even affects certain missions that you get from the previous games to the newer games. It's really an accomplishment.
Yeah, because I mean, even the side missions, like they could have made it just where if you do like main story missions and you make a decision to do this, that you see that ramifications of that in the other games. Like no, it doesn't just stop there. It's the side missions. It's the missions that you could possibly have never even done anything with. The fact that you didn't do anything with it can also have an effect, and that's to like I'm watching I think it was PAX or something like that where they actually like went through and was talking about like how many decisions and dialogue lines they had from like Mass Effect 1 all the way up into Mass Effect 3. And by the time they got to 3, like it more than I want to say like at one point they were saying like there was 1,400 lines of dialogue in the first one or something. I mean, probably not really close, but it like more than doubled, like probably quadrupled by the time they hit Mass Effect 3 because of all the decisions and variations that could happen throughout the trilogy. That's just it. That's why I like the series so much, is because everything I do, I genuinely do feel like it mattered.
No, it did, absolutely did. And I guess kind of from what Rasmus said about the whole Paragon and Renegade Shepherd. Yes, I am Paragon Shepherd. And then there you go, Rasmus. That's why I'm not Garrus. But the thing is, I'm already considered Hawk in one of the other drawings, so I can't always just be the blank template character. So we had to go with some kind of personality other than the main character. Because technically, again, we all are the main characters of our BioWare games. But, speaking of which, well, I guess we'll go ahead and talk about our shepherds. Of course, mine was the goody two shoes for the most part. If there was a way he can circumvent the violence or not have to kill somebody, he always took it. He was kind of the goody two shoes. But there are certain times where diplomacy simply was not the answer and ass kicking was mandatory. What about you with your shepherd? How did you kind of play things out?
Okay, this is going to be this is going to be a setup into like going like kind of straight into like the next thing and just talking about the ending because there's a reason why I feel my Shepherd is so I don't even want to say. I was going to say the way I play Shepherd is perfect, but but my Shepherd is Renegade. Whenever that needs to be done, he's going to do it, no matter what the cost. If it means thousands of people dying to save millions, he's going to make that hard decision to do it because in the end, it's about saving lives and making sure life
The
continues.
greater good.
Exactly. It's not, the most pleasant way of doing things. Definitely, there's more diplomatic ways of going about it,
Diplomatic.
but diplomatic,
See,
whatever.
you don't even
But
know the
there's
word. That's how rarely you use diplomacy.
exactly my word is usually bam. So, but that and again, like I said, this is actually really just going to like segue right into the ending, and the reason why I feel the Renegade Shepherd is the way to play as Shepherd throughout the trilogy is because it is the Renegade Shepherd is almost a direct reflection of the Reapers and their purpose, um, and just with doing the harvest and stuff, because ultimately what they're doing is saving organic life no matter what the cost.
From itself. Because inevitably it
Exactly.
always destroys itself.
Exactly. And by that, and this is where a lot of people like throw it, saying that it's a plot hole or whatever, because basically the fear was that by creating synthetic life, it's going to destroy organic life. And the Reaper's solution to that was destroying advanced organic life. So like, and even like he was talking about earlier, Bioware always finds a way to throw these things back into the game. Shepard even makes mention of that at the end when he's talking to the Star Child, and like he's like, How does that even make sense? You're killing us right now. How are you saving life?" But they are. And again, it's not the most pleasant way, but they're ensuring that organic life in general continues, not necessarily one species, humans or Asari or even the Protheans or Leviathan. They're ensuring that organic life in general continues. And that to me is why I feel, the Renegade Shepherd is just a great like mirror image of what the Reapers are doing, is because they both are trying to save organic life no matter what the cost.
Yeah. And I guess that's really a good way to go ahead and get into that. So when it comes to the endings, I know a lot of people are kind of pissed off. They feel there's a lot of plot holes. And the funny thing is I actually prefer the original three endings to the extended cut only because of the fact that we could have discussions like this. With the extended cut, you had the little epilogue slides that kind of further explained the ramifications of your actions, but the problem is it was so set in stone. And no matter whether anybody wants to admit it or not, each one had a happy ending. Like if you chose destroy, happy ending. If you chose control, happy ending. If you chose synthesis, happy ending. There really wasn't much to think about, and it kind of is sad because not all stories end that way. Sometimes with certain mediums, whether it be books, movies, games, you'll do something, the game ends, but there's something that would affect the future, but you never see what those futures. That's where you have the speculation and the discussions. Then you really got to think, what I did, was it the right thing to do? With the extended cut, no matter what you did, it was the right thing to do. So it really didn't matter what you chose. If anything, the extended cut kind of invalidated your choices, or at least the meaning behind your choices, rather than the original.
And I mean, and another thing that was with the extended cut, when people first started beating the game, in the weeks following the release of Mass Effect 3, people were like, a lot of the complaints I was seeing is that people were, saying, Where's the ending where Shepard and Garrus, have their drinks on the beach and stuff like that?" And then people start calling them out, like, "Oh, well, your issue is that you're not getting that quote unquote happy ending." And then people were quick to go, "Oh no, that's not it. It's just that there's plot holes and ultimately, in my opinion, I feel that the majority of people that have an issue with the ending of Mass Effect 3, and I say ending loosely because there's actually multiple endings and not just 3 or 4 after the extended cut. I mean, there's like, what was it, like 16, 18 fucking endings?
Well, yeah, because what people get tripped up on is the cinematic. There's more
Yeah,
to an ending than a cinematic, and that's where a lot of
exactly.
people tend to get hung up on.
And it's no, I'm the thing about it is like there is no clean cut happy ending. Like you don't see Shepard right off in the sunset. But I'm glad they chose not to do that because that would be so cliche, and it just they chose to go a different route. And even so, they like you said, I mean, there still is a happy ending. It may not be, Shepard, like I said, riding off in the sunset, but he succeeds.
Yeah, no matter what, you're going to be taking losses, and that bothered people. And I'm even one of those people, like, I wasn't bothered by it, but I really would have liked some kind of ending with as much effort and everything that I've done to have an ending where everything comes out, all gumdrops, butterflies, and rainbows. But the thing is no matter what, there's always a cost to be paid. Throughout the entire game, there's been a price that you have to pay. There's people that had to make sacrifices, or you've sacrifices yourself. That's kind of been the theme throughout all of Mass Effect. That never changed.
And then again, I bring back to that point. That's why I like the Renegade Shepard. That's why it makes sense with the Reapers because they're trying to do the right thing, but you're going to have to pay a cost. There's no freebies. You're going to have to sacrifice something to get what you want, and ultimately, that sacrifice was, the sunshine and gooey gumdrops and all that shit ending. But even so, I mean, I personally didn't have an issue with the ending. I didn't feel like the endings were the same because one, you cannot play, even if you play through Mass Effect 1 all the way through 3 and say you've seen all the endings. Like, even if you go back and play and, do destroy, do synthesis, do control, or refuse, like, you cannot play through it once and claim that you've seen all the endings. You have to play through it all 3 games as a
Multiple
renegade.
times in multiple different ways.
Exactly. You have to, and all the way through them as a paragon, all the way through them. Like I've actually played all the way through it, like just right down the middle, neutral. The endings were different. Like you're still going to see red, green, and blue, but
The ending itself.
what actually is transpiring and how it happens is different. Like
Yeah,
and
because a lot of people, the issue they had is they said that I didn't get closure, and I'm like, how did you not get closure? I mean, you may have not have physically seen it, like there wasn't a cut scene, you got to see the future and everything happened. But as far as what happened with the genophage, you speak to, okay, I think we should have said spoilers from the beginning, but I think it's kind of a given because it's
yeah,
N7 day, and at this point, I'm sure everybody, or at least the majority of people, have played through the Mass Effect games. But for instance, the genophage, Morden Solis, Mr. Dude Fuck Yeah himself, he sacrificed himself to make sure the genophage was cured once and for all. And by the time you get to that final battle, I spoke to Rex, and Rex is like, "Hey, you know what? I got kids on the way. I'm a dad. You know, through the Krogan, they're gonna live after all." And it was great. And even with the Quarians and the Geth, I managed to broker peace between the two of them, which apparently I've heard is rare. A lot of people, for some reason, were unable to do that.
yeah. For me, like I didn't even know that was a possibility until a
Yes.
couple of months ago. Like, and like, again, going all the way back to I'm still playing the game and seeing new things for the first time. Like I didn't even know that was possible to have them both. I thought it was one or the other, and it blew my mind when I sat there and was like, wait a minute, I get them both?
You can
Like
say
what?
both. Yeah, which is what it's funny because we can sit here and we can talk about this kind of stuff, and the way our universe in the end is going to be different. Like your universe, apparently you screwed up and you couldn't say both of them.
I ain't gonna say I screwed up, motherfucker.
But yeah, I mean, there's so much like even what happens to the Rachni, and just there's so much that gets wrapped up. Maybe even so, what if it's kind of just words? Did you really expect for them to have like? Do you know how many decisions you made that affected the universe? To go ahead and try and count those all out, and if you were to have cutscenes, it would be pretty much an hour-long Kojima-style cutscene in itself, just to see all the ramifications of all the actions you had throughout the entire game. So what you had is throughout the game, there's different references and stuff like that. And even by the end, a lot of the things that you did, kind of, all the plot lines were resolved by the end.
Yeah.
Maybe so much as just you talking to somebody and they tell you, hey, this happens. But you can also, from there, even just speculate how other things tend to work out. Which is what's going to bring us to the actual 3 endings, or 4 endings. So we'll include the extended cut in itself as well. And kind of analyze these endings a little bit more, at least as far as before the extended cut. Because again, the extended cut, no matter what you chose, it was the right decision. And we're going to kind of go further than that. For starters, it's not a goddamn godchild. Even though the stupid little thing underneath it says Star Child, that's just what they decided to name it. It's an advanced AI. There's nothing magical, there's nothing mystical about it. If you play through the Leviathan DLC, they even say that they were the ones that created the Catalyst AI for their purpose, the fact that they used to enthrall and enslave advanced organisms. But what happened is, in their kind of warship, they would always end up creating these synthetics to make things easier for them, and the synthetics would rebel, or they would use the synthetics against one another. So the Leviathans kind of got sick of all this infighting, and they're like, shit, let's create this kind of AI to figure it out for us, because we're too powerful and important to really deal with this on our own. We're gods. Let this thing take care of it. And it had this flawed program from the very beginning that it continued to the point where it even ended up turning the Leviathans into the original Reapers and kind of continued it. So it was very flawed to begin with. We get it. Its logic is kind of batshit crazy, but that's because that's the way it was programmed, and because in a sense it's still learning, which is why it even says you've changed things. What you've
Yeah.
done is kind of contradicted my logic. You have now opened up new possibilities. Everything went according to the codex. Everything went according to what you were doing. It all made sense to why he was there. It didn't make sense so much as to why he was doing it, because again, it was even explained that it was flawed. It didn't think there was possibilities before until you showed it there was possibilities. Which
Right.
brings us. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, it's the same thing. Like, if anybody who's ever watched
It's Skynet
Tron Legacy,
or
no,
Tron.
it's Tron Legacy. Like, when he created Clue, he said, "I want you to help me build the perfect system." That's such a vague statement to make to something that doesn't have, like
A conscious for
the
starters.
right, yeah, and just to be able to make these decisions, like, oh, now there's these basically synthetic life, which is the ISOs, like it the perfect system, that's a variable. It's going to think, oh, I need to destroy these because it's going to fuck up the perfect system. So when you make a vague statement like that, like in the case of the Reapers, ensure that organic life continues. You got to be a little bit more specific than that, because inevitably that's where the harvest comes into play, because they're ensuring organic life continues, not a specific species continues.
Yeah. And to kind of get into those endings, so you're given 3 different choices, but there's a secret fourth choice that you get the extended cut, which the choices are to either destroy, which if you destroy, it kills all synthetic life. So it's not just the Reapers, you now also kill Edie, you kill the Geth if you manage to get them to survive up into that point, and it even is going to destroy a lot of technology. It even said that to some extent it would even affect your implants. It wouldn't kill you, it even said, but it would kind of change you. You would be a little bit different. You would be a little more worse for wear. But even then, you had from there the option to do control. It's like, okay, so in a sense, you're telling me I either can do what I was going to do from the beginning, which is destroy. I can try and go the elusive man route, which is funny because it even shows these kind of people, kind of makes references to these previous villains. And it's like, oh yeah, well, control is possible, but not the way he thought, because he was indoctrinated. So if you wanted to, you can give up your body, kind of in a sense, kill yourself in a heroic gesture, and become kind of like the new Catalyst. You replace the
Yeah.
Catalyst and are able to control the Reapers. Or you have a third option to where, again, you can kind of throw yourself into this pit, sacrifice yourself, and it kind of decodes you, kind of molecularly rips you to pieces, and creates a new genetic code to make everything partially organic and partially synthetic. So everything is supposed to be equal and kind of shoot that wave throughout all of the universe.
Hmm.
And so, in the way I see it, I'll tell you the option I picked, and we'll probably discuss the other options if we Because no matter what, there's the four options anyways, and I'm pretty sure you may have picked a different one, or maybe you didn't, but we'll still discuss the possibilities or ramifications of the other one. I, even as a Paragon, remember, I'm Mr. Goody Two Shoes, I still believe that Destroy is the best option. And this is why I say this. Because throughout the entire game, your mission is to stop the Reapers at all costs, no matter what. I've gotten to this point. I've had Caden Linko sacrifice his life for this. I've had Morden Solis sacrifice himself for not only the Genophage, but also the cause of stopping the Reapers. So many people have given up their lives. So many people have fought for this point to stop the Reapers once and for all. Now, with Control, the way I looked at it, is sure, I can go ahead and control these Reapers, but Shepard may be the biggest badass in the galaxy, male or female. But you really think, even with this kind of tech, he or she would be able to control the Reapers forever? To me, it just seemed like either Shepard would become the monster that they were fighting against to begin with, or they would simply lose that control over time. Or in the case of Synthesis. That's what Saren wanted from the very beginning. So you're basically contradicting yourself by going with Synthesis because that's what he wanted, and you're like, no, you're dumb, that doesn't work, and then he shot himself in the head for it, or at least in my playthrough he did. And you're forcing this, you're making this choice and forcing it upon everything. It's like, congratulations, you are now part synthetic, and you are now part, organic. And there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to accept that. They're not going to be like just zapped and be like, oh, hey, I'm part robot now. This is awesome. No, there's going to be a lot of people freaking out. You're probably going to, as dark as this sounds, have people that are going to go insane and probably even commit suicide because they can't handle this new change. There's so much more to it. You can't really guarantee peace either because look at what we are. We are all right now human beings, but there's still things that make us fundamentally different. We still fight. We still kill one another. What makes you think making everybody synthetic and organic is going to make everything's peaceful? Because they're still going to be different. You're still going to have Turians. You're still going to have humans. You're still going to have Quarians. You're still going to have all these other things. So it's not going to guarantee peace, even if you make the Reapers empathetic. Because for starters, all right, now the Reapers have a conscience, but now they have the same flaws as living organic things do. They now can have hubris. They're the biggest, most powerful thing in the galaxy still. They already have the power to enthrall other synthetics as well as organics. Now that everything's synthetic organic hybrid, one day they can basically become just as bad as Leviathans. Technically, they still are Leviathans, so they just have to make the same choice of, oh, well, we're the superior species, enthrall everything, you're all now my puppets, dance. And then the final option of just shooting it in the face, which is hilarious, because it gets pissed off at you, and it's like, oh, fine. And it becomes all, like, deep voice and angry. That, to me, yes, it was an awesome, defiant action, but it still felt like not the right choice. Like, you tried to stop the Reapers, and in the end, you kind of just got angry and gave up. And Destroy was a hard choice because of the fact that, yes, I managed to broker peace between the Quarians and the Geth, and I killed the Geth by doing Destroy. And I killed 80 by doing Destroy. And it was so very difficult to make that decision because Edie was such an awesome character, and even the Geth, especially Legion, were just such great characters. And for me to work that hard just to undo it through Destroy, to me, it was the only certain way to get rid of the Reapers. Because, in fact, it was the only certain way to get rid of the Reapers. It killed them. It destroyed. That's it. They're done. The other two options, who knows what the future holds. Your turn.
So for me, I synthesis. I without once even before the extended cut, without having to have this all elaborate freaking explanation of what's going to happen if I make this choice. Synthesis made sense to me because just looking at destroying them. Okay, you destroy all synthetic life. Eventually, like as and it's actually been introduced because don't forget that artificial intelligence was actually outlawed in the galaxy because of what happened with the Quarians and the Geth. Eventually, some other shadowy group like Cerberus is going to rise up in the ashes of the surviving species and start messing around with artificial intelligence again, and we're going to be right back to where we was before. So for me, destroying them didn't really make sense because it's just going to happen again. Control, to me, and this is kind of like tied in what you was talking about. To me, control just seems like eventually what may end up happening is Shepard might end up, you see these. The way I think about it, like Lawnmower Man, like like he becomes part of the system, and all of a sudden his whole mindset on and
I
how
am
is about.
God.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, well, Shepard doesn't want. He's never wanted that much control over anything. He doesn't want to, have that much influence on the entire galaxy. He just wants to make sure everybody, well, as many people survive as possible. So that to me was just like, that doesn't even make sense. And that's where synthesis makes sense because even though that's going to get like the Reapers on the same page as humans, they're going to have their own full consciousness. They're going to be basically an actual life form at that point. There's no need for organics to try to better themselves in terms of extending their lives, because I mean if you think about even like Deus Ex, that was part of the whole thing with augmentation, like how to better organic well, and that it's just human beings, like what's the next step of evolution for humans, and with Mass Effect it's going to be what's the next step of evolution for organics.
Yeah.
Organics are always just trying to find the next way of beating death. I mean that's ultimately the goal of organics, is to conquer death. The goal of synthetics is to conquer life. Like understand what life is, understand these emotions that us living creatures have. Synthesis basically you know solves that ultimate problem that synthetics and organics are going to have. Now, there obviously, because there's so many different species still surviving, there's going to be other conflicts going, but you're going to still have conflicts whether you destroy all the synthetics, reapers, and all that stuff, anyways. Because again, you're not going to have. I mean, you can't even have a group of 5 people without having somebody disagreeing about something. So it's to me, synthesis just made the most sense.
Now, see, this is how you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. No, I can definitely see that point. See, that's what was so beautiful about the original cut. Because as much as I'd like to debate you on your ending, and you'd like to debate me on mine, it's just that's the beauty of it, is the fact that we could even have this kind of discussion that just proves how powerful even just the original ending before extended cut was. Because otherwise we wouldn't be able to talk about it so passionately, we wouldn't be able to speculate, we wouldn't even come up with our own justification for our endings, because all that we have is the extended cut, which is, hey, guess what, you chose control, you're right, you chose synthesis, you're right, you chose destroy, even you're right, no matter what, everybody's right, except for the person
Yeah.
that decided to shoot the Star Child in the face and kind of doom the cycle to repeat itself again. That person, I
But I
think,
mean,
is wrong no matter
ultimately,
what.
but still, ultimately, by the time you finish Mass Effect, I mean, everybody's going to have their own ending. I mean, even if you make the same decisions in terms of like, synthesis or destroy or control, your motivations on doing that and why you chose to do that, you're going to have a hard time finding 2 people saying like, oh, this is exactly why I did it, and their reasons are the same. I mean, I've talked to other people because that chose synthesis, for completely other different reasons. I mean, it again, it really just pushes the fact that your choices throughout the entire series matter
I mean, it
because
may be not to
at
everybody else, but in the end, they matter to you. And
yeah,
ultimately, when you're creating a game, when you're creating a story, that is what matters.
that was beautiful,
And
man.
that's why I'm Shepard. See, just these rousing speeches. uh, anything
Hold
else you'd
the
like?
line.
Anything on the line? Anything else you'd like to add to this before we get into the next good part?
um, the I guess the only issue I would say as far as the ending goes, and I don't know how well this will tie into other stuff, but the whole fact that and I enjoyed this up until the point that the extended cut came out, and it pretty much like completely just said, nope, that's not a possibility. Um, was the whole indoctrination theory, because when you would go back and well, when I did went back into the codex, and I was like, okay, wait a minute, like there's all these symptoms of the indoctrinated people, and they would see things that's not there. And like throughout Mass Effect 3, like you're always seeing this kid, and then once you get to the Star Child, oh, there's that kid. The freaking catalyst is taking on the form of that.
Yeah,
Like
but you know
ultimately,
it did that just purposely to fuck with you.
right. And then ultimately, I mean, once the extended cut came out, it was basically like, oh, well, it's just a plot hole. We're not explaining why we
No,
did.
in the extended cut they did explain it. It actually did. It purposely even said that I did this just to fuck with you. Like I picked a recent image in your head.
You said that?
I'd have to go back, but I'm more than sure that he did. I could be mistaken, but I'm more than sure that he did say that it picked something familiar, and that's why it chose the image of the child.
I mean, I know the only time I remember like Shepard seen something and just that was an image of something that he found familiar. It's like when he basically went into the Geth consciousness, and he was basically like freeing the Geth or whatever. So like destroying like the code and
Oh
stuff
yeah, the
like that.
nodes
They
and
gave him a gun and shit or
yeah,
whatever. But I don't know. Maybe I missed that. I don't know. I thought
but
that was like an open.
But no. Still, to your credit though, about the whole indoctrination theory, that was another cool thing that was actually spawned by the Mass Effect community. You just had these individuals who are just like, oh well, yeah, just like you said and what you noticed. If you read through the codex, you see the symptoms, and then as you're playing through different games, especially once you're getting towards the end in Mass Effect 3, or even just halfway through, you start noticing things like his dreams and how it becomes all like black tentacly and just all this really odd things kind of going down. And there was a lot that kind of gave credit to that theory up until that nope extended cut moment.
Yeah.
But it was great that people could even do that with it.
Because I mean, I would have. I mean, even if like the extended cut would have came out, or like they even released another DLC and just said, "Yo, everything you did in the past three games was nothing. Like it wasn't. You wasn't really making these decisions because you was indoctrinated." Like if they would have came out and did that, I would have like. Th- I mean, pissed off, but at the same time, it would have been like, oh, it makes so much sense because like Shepard is the one person in the galaxy that's had the most interaction with Reaper and Reaper tech to have never become indoctrinated.
You know
Like
why?
it just it that
Pure
to me,
badassitude and strength of will.
but now, like I don't get me
You're
wrong, I
like, I
like
will
the
not
game, but
suspend. I will not suspend my belief for that much.
like it just oh God, like he was always around it, and then he just never became influenced by it until at the very end when an elusive man basically had somehow out of nowhere had the power to indoctrinate people because he was doing all that fucking bullshit research and all that stuff. But still,
He
like
was like
I would have
grafting
loved
husk
had that
skin
been
to
an
him and
ending.
everything. Elusive Man was batshit crazy. He was
Yeah.
he was grafting, Reaper tech to himself. Who the fuck does
Oh, that's one
that?
thing I wanted to say. You brought up Saren, and that was ultimately what Saren was trying to do was basically make a bond between synthetic and organics.
Yeah,
You
he was
gotta
about
understand,
synthesis.
yeah, but in his mind, because he was indoctrinated, he thought he was doing what was right to save all organic
Yeah,
life,
no, I mean he
to
was he was
stop the conflict.
he was indoctrinated, of course. I'm not saying otherwise, but he still wanted synthesis. He's still like, hey, join me, and we'll
Which
just
would have
get
made
these
it
stuff.
even better if you would have chose synthesis and just found out like and had a
You're now
little
all just a bunch of
stone kid go,
Sarens.
ha 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 ha, gotcha, bitch. Like,
Yeah,
like yeah.
just like some kind of trick ending,
Yeah,
some M Night
exactly.
Shyamalan shit to get pissed off at. Blech. The
Could you
Reapers are the
imagine?
good guys all along. What a twist!
Like I just imagine like death threats becoming like sent to Bioware if they actually pull some shit like
Shit,
that.
they
Me
got death
personally, I
threats
would
for
have
their
loved
ending
it, but
anyways.
I know exactly.
Even like the two heads of Bioware, they were there from the beginning, and I feel so bad because they were so amazing. But I hate butchering their names, which is why I'm not gonna say them. We'll just call them the two doctors. Even quit. One because of how they admitted that EA was a little bit overbearing. One of them even said that the best way to explain it is like a bear hug, a very angry bear hug. That's what they were getting. It was pretending to be friendly, but also they were just so disheartened by fans, people that used to or so supposed to love them and be such devoted followers to say we hate you, and for them to even get death threats, which death threats in any way, shape, or form at any point in time never acceptable, ever. And it happened. They still got death threats because people felt that entitled to it. And the funny thing is yes, okay, it is our stories, but it's our stories that they created for us. We get to shape our stories, but ultimately they're the ones that weaved it to begin with. We have no sense of entitlement. It's something that they've created for us to enjoy, and for us, we can create our own stories from there.
And that's, I mean, ultimately, not to like stay on this one point too long, but
Which we have.
like, yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, the whole argument that your choices don't matter throughout the series. I've played it for hundreds of hours. God, I hate when people say that shit. I'm like, first of all, the fact that people try to throw that at me,
Me?
me. Okay, first of all, I'm sure there are people out there who have played the Mass Effect trilogy more than me, but I'm going to confidently say there isn't that many because yes, I have literally put hundreds of hours into this series. So for people to throw that up is just fucking ridiculous.
Just
But
hundreds.
that being said, I I'm not going to, even if I truly just disagreed with the ending, I'm not going to let the last 15 minutes of the hundreds of hours I've put into the series just make me go, okay, I fucking hate this game.
I hate the series. I hate
Yeah,
everything Mass
yeah.
Effect.
These guys need to die because of the last 15 minutes. No, it ultimately in any game it's about the journey to the end. That's what you're really playing it for. That's where you're going to get the fun out of it. And just like Deus Ex Human Revolution, the ending of Deus Ex Human Revolution made absolutely no fucking sense. The fact that they made it to where you had a choice. Because ultimately, there really is no choice because it's a prequel. We know what happens. So Adam Jensen can choose whatever the hell he wants to do, but we know that augmentation is going to still happen. So the fact that they made it seem like you could choose the augmentation stop, it was retarded.
Because you
But
can't.
the journey to that point was amazing, just like through Mass Effect. So I'm not, I cannot understand, and I completely respect that people don't like the ending, but the fact that people sit there and get to the point that they completely hate the entire series because of the ending, to me, is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is something important we should probably point out before people are like, ah, we start getting death threats. Is that
Again.
everybody. Well, we'll go. That's a story for a different time. But yeah, it's everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and everybody should respect each other's opinion. I may not agree with your opinion on synthesis, but you have every right to make it, no matter how wrong you are.
Fuck you.
But I mean, that's the beauty of it is we should still be able to have these kind of civil discussions to try and learn from one another's insight, and ultimately just not try and bash each other in the face over it. Even though we are very passionate of it, and sometimes it kind of that's how passionate we become. We kind of need to just reel ourselves back a little bit, kind of to just take a look at it and just be like, okay, no, this isn't right. Because everybody should be able to like whatever they want. Nobody should be able to tell anybody you can't like this or you can't like that.
And I mean, again, it's the fact that they've created this series and a lot of their games. Just the fact that you can play through it and literally have your own adventure. It's your, I mean, you're still within the confines of this, the universe that they're creating, the story they're creating, but how you get from A to B is completely up to you. Not, I mean, we're seeing it more often now in gaming, but when like Mass Effect first came
Because Mass
out,
Effect started it.
yeah, I mean, it's. we gotta still, and that's what's great about in 7 days. You gotta really just, even if you don't like the series, you just legitimately don't, still gotta respect what it's done for the industry.
Exactly. Man, there's something more I wanted to say in regards to this whole N7 thing, but I think what we'll do is we'll probably just continue on, because we've been talking on this particular subject for a while, into Mass Effect 4.
Fucking shut the fuck! God damn it! Ah! Okay, first of all, there is no such thing confirmed by BioWare. There is no such thing. There is no game being made called Mass Effect 4. Mass Effect 4 is a fucking fallacy. Like, no. It's no. No. Stop it. Stop.
It may be the fourth Mass Effect game, but it is not Mass Effect 4.
It is not Mass Effect 4. Mass Effect 4, I mean, and this is, I mean, yes, it aggravates the shit out of me when people says that, you fucking asshole. But the thing about it is, like, what irks me is that, you know, they're so adamant that to say it's not Mass Effect 4 because Mass Effect 4 implies or like can give you the assumption that Shepard is coming back. It may have something to do with Shepard. And the Mass Effect trilogy, 1 through 3, was Shepard's story in the Mass Effect universe. The next Mass Effect game, same universe, but you're playing as somebody else. And
Well, not only that, but it is the ending of Shepard's story, but also takes place, from at least from what they said, not in today's N7 Day stream, but back when they first announced it, kind of like around E3, is that it takes place much further into the future. So you're going to notice there's a lot of changes.
and a lot of the stuff that they've shown thus far, and like the concept art that's actually been playing like throughout your stream, is they're still just showing like the humans. Which the one thing I would say that completely made sense with the Mass Effect trilogy because the original trilogy, a lot of people complained that oh my god, you can't play as a different species. Okay, the Mass Effect original Mass Effect trilogy was the story of the first human Spectre. So it doesn't really make sense to play as a Turian or a Krogan when you're playing in a story about the first human Spectre.
Yeah, I mean, there was the story that was focused around Shepard. They kind of had an idea of who Shepard was from the very beginning. Again,
Yeah,
male or female, it was still supposed to be the first human Spectre. It was supposed to be a human. As to where now, I mean, if I'm looking down, it's not because I'm busy texting or anything like that. I actually kind of have notes set up for the presentation they had for N7 Day of information previously announced at E3 and kind of combined it with a lot of the new stuff they showed too. And I mean, it still is going to have the same Mass Effect feel, but they're looking to go further and kind of do more with it. And even from the concept art, which is playing below us speaking within the same video, that is all the concept art they've shown so far, is they're looking more towards that whole space exploration, kind of getting more to the feeling of kind of what Mass Effect 1 was. And because the fact that the universe is just so expansive and there's so much to go to, which is why you're also going to be experiencing new species, new planets, new galaxies, and so on, it kind of makes sense that this time around, if that's what they go for, and I hope is what they go for, that you play something other than a human. Now, if you play a human again, it's not going to be the end of the world for me, but I will be mildly disappointed, especially because BioWare is very much about diversity. They could make things a little more diverse as far as even just having different aliens. It doesn't have to be just, okay, well, male or female, but you can play as other races besides just human as well. That would be nice. And it would make sense for something that's supposed to be so massive in scale from what they're saying, and the fact that you're doing the whole space exploration and so forth.
that's I mean one of the things I was like I'm concerned about is because thus far all they've really shown off as far as like I mean that they've shown other like a few images of like different species, but the predominant thing that they've really been showing is just humans.
And the male
Uh,
human in the N7 armor. Let's also
yeah,
not forget that.
yeah,
I
exactly.
didn't put that
So
picture in there, I'm sorry. But if you go ahead and search for new Mass Effect screenshots, I'm more than sure anybody listening to this or watching it on YouTube can find it. But yeah, that's what they've shown as far as character is concerned. They haven't confirmed if that is your character or not, but that's just what they've shown concept art wise.
and I mean, I don't want to get like too upset about it because I mean, and this is something that we've talked about before, like before the initial announcement, like actual reveal stuff that they was doing for Mass Effect back at E3. Like I was always just like people had asked, are you excited for the next Mass Effect game? I'm like, I don't know because the doctors ain't there anymore. Even at that point, Casey Hudson was actually still, a predominant part of the project, but now, actually, since then, he's actually going on to different things. Um, so it just, like, to me, and again, will completely just going to come out and say that the EA influence also has me leery about the next Mass Effect game.
No, and
But
yeah,
one we joked about it when it happened on E3, but once it started playing that classic Mass Effect music, like I'm not even going to lie, like fanboy
you
moment
were
or
just like,
whatever the hell you want to call it, like goosebumps. I was like, "Ooh," like I was ready for it. Dude. I was like, give me something. And like you said, I mean, they from what they have said so far, that there is going to be a big focus on exploration, and a lot of the actually, I would say probably half of the concept art that they've actually released today actually shows the new Mako on like different planets. Like,
bringing the
and you
Mako
can actually
back.
see, characters or somebody actually standing outside of it. So, and they actually showed the new Mako at E3 actually in action, and it's a lot more. From what it looks like, a hell of a lot more easier to control. Which again, like me, like you, didn't really have an issue controlling
Shit,
it.
we had fun with it.
Yeah, the one thing I will say though is if you played Mass Effect on PC, controlling the Mako on PC was it's
Yeah, see, that's different. I played on Xbox 360, so I can't attest to the difficulty of driving in a Mako on PC.
yeah, that's
You
the
guys
one.
should
Like,
handle it though. PC Master Race.
but like everything else was better on PC. Everything else was better on PC because
Shots
the hacking
fired.
was a hell of a lot, but like a little hacking mini game, and Mass Effect One was a hell of a lot better on PC. The fact that you could actually issue independent orders to your squad mates, like you can tell Caden to go over here and Ashley to go over here,
Caden,
which you
go fuck
couldn't even do
off.
that until Mass Effect 2 on console. But yeah, Control the Mako on PC Mass Effect One was fucking horrendous. But the new one looks pretty awesome, and it looks like it's going to be a hell of a lot faster too. Like not just it. The original Mako, I guess, was supposed to be like a tank. This one seems to be more of like
Like
an
a
vehicle.
all-terrain vehicle, like an APC almost, even probably a little bit quicker than that.
Yeah.
That's one thing they did say though. They want to go ahead because a lot of people are scared because EA influence is one thing. I mean, the thing is, everybody wants to see EA as the evil machine that it kind of is. But there's definitely bigger monsters out there. But also, EA has realized they've screwed up, and they even have kind of made advances, like Dragon Age Inquisition for starters, because I have to get Dragon Age in there somewhere. Originally was supposed to be released a lot earlier. EA wanted them to release it earlier, but then already people were getting pissed off, and even the development team of BioWare was like, "Hey, this is probably not going to end very well." They wanted more time, and they thankfully got more time. EA gave them more time, so I'm not too worried at as much about EA's influence. The one thing that is not even a concern to me, but is a concern that several people have had because they had to address it. They wouldn't have to address it otherwise. Is people are afraid this is not going to be a Mass Effect game, and they wanted to stress in their N7 stream that it absolutely still is a Mass Effect game in all intents and purposes. They're going to be taking a lot of old themes that pre-existed from the previous games, but they're also going to add a lot new. They want to create an amazing, just memorable experience.
And one of the things that was kind of just really just left, to the wayside and was an actual plot hole. And from what I heard, the reason for this is because the actual ending on how they was intending on ending Mass Effect 3 actually got leaked, so they actually like rewrote it to a certain extent. Was how the whole dark energy
Oh,
tied
dark
in with the
matter,
story.
yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that they actually fully fledge out how that affects things because like I don't know if you recall this, but like when Tolly was doing the research about the star, like outside of her home planet, which I can't for the life of me remember what the planet's name is, but it was basically fluctuating and getting hotter, and the only thing they could really tie it to was dark energy, but they didn't understand like what was going on with it. They were researching,
It was
you know,
still a
it
resource that they didn't understand or even just
right,
how to
and
implement.
and the whole thing about it was like it was acting like something was actually influencing it, not like it just a natural course of action.
Use your
So
words.
yeah, so I hope they actually like dive a little bit deeper into that. And you know, as it's been playing this whole time on your video here, the concept art, a lot of this stuff is like kind of looking like pyramids and stuff like that. So I'm kind of interested to see if like that's just a coincidence or if they're like going to actually go into, you know, I'm not saying it's aliens, but aliens. Like if they're going to go into like ancient alien stuff and like you know kind of tie into, you know, maybe some other alien race was like all kind of like working alongside the Reapers and like helping influence organic life to get to a certain point or something like that. That would be interesting. Ultimately, it you know we don't know what's going on, but we do know who's at least writing for the new Mass Effect, and that was one of the things that was announced.
Well, before we get to that, because I know you want to discuss this, and I do too, we will get back to the writing team. The one thing too is the whole joke about ancient aliens. The funny thing is they kind of did say they kind of like, and they kind of almost retracted it that looks like it could be ruins. It looks like it's older tech, even though it still is advanced tech. So there's going to be a lot of wonderment to space exploration. They did say there's definitely going to be a main antagonist. There's going to be an evil force you're going to be going against. The game, although there's a heavy, aspect of space exploration, just the vastness of the universe, that you still will be fighting against things. You're still going to be fighting against creatures. You're still going to be fighting against, evil forces and so on. You're still going to have something that's driving you. It's still a BioWare game, so you can definitely expect there to be choices, and you definitely can expect it to be very story-driven. That's kind of their MO. And what's really cool is the way they're going to kind of work it into it is with space exploration. There's going to be a little bit of tension to it because you're exploring new worlds, or at least to you, what are new worlds. So you don't know what's there. You don't know what's lying in wait. It might be completely peaceful. You might come there and all of a sudden there's just thresher maws or just other kind of very hostile life that's there. You could be traversing through one of the caves, or in this case, ruins, and all of a sudden just an entire wave of bad guys just come pouring out. You never know what's going to happen next. And they really want to capitalize on that. They really want to make that feeling genuine.
And I would love to see that actually happen because what, and again, I'm not saying the game is bad or by any means. I mean, it's actually a really good game, but to me, the weakest link in the series is Mass Effect 2. Because, not to really go too deep into it, just because Mass Effect 2, the overall like mission structure of it just seemed like so freaking out of place. Like, you're supposed to be fighting Reapers, figuring out what's going on with these Reapers that's like trying to destroy life, but you're on an errand run for every fucking asshole that you're supposed to be like, yo, dude, I
Hey,
don't care about your personal problems because, hey, gotta save the galaxy.
there's Reapers,
But,
man. There's Reapers.
exactly.
Priorities.
So, that I would like to actually see them go back into that kind of gameplay where you're doing, like, you're going to these other planets, you're, exploring, all that exploration without having this such a great imminent force of, like, concern that you should be having, but it seems like just backpedaled throughout the entire game of Mass Effect 2. So it really, if they can make it, oh, I was going to say it like Star Trek, where you're basically just going around
No.
exploring and shit. That to me would be pretty cool.
But what they are going to go for is they do want space exploration as well as, main mission or critical mission path to be seamless. And that's, I think, a really cool thing they want to do. They definitely said we want to do the very least amount of loading screens as we possibly can. So that's really cool. That's something that they are going to be pushing for. And, I mean, you kind of seen it, at least from some of the early playthrough footage they shown for Dragon Age Inquisition. You had some scenes that kind of just And it's the beauty of the newer gen stuff and technology that's available to where they can get away with that because they are going to be using the new Frostbite engine for the new Mass Effect game. And there's going to be new enemies to face. I know Rasmus is like, oh, I hope you can fight against different races. You are going to be experiencing new races. They definitely have said that you are going to meet new alien races. You're going to come across whether they're going to be friend or foe. It could even come down to your choices. It just there's so much that they still have to go through. But that is one thing you will be going against is you're going to either be making friends that are new aliens or enemies that are new aliens. But they're definitely there, and you can kind of see that reflected in the concept art that's within this video and from what they've shown off as well. It is going to be a new experience. It is not going to be the same that you've had with the first three games. Not to say that the first three games are bad. It's just it's apples and oranges at this point.
Yeah, and with the thing with the whole exploration, they're really like, especially if they're wanting to make that such a predominant aspect of this next game or trilogy, however they're planning on doing it. Um, when you look at other games coming out that's been done through crowdfunding now, which is Elite Dangerous, Star Citizen,
Star Citizen.
then you also take in consideration No Man's Sky, which is being done by a six-man team, I think. Like only six people are doing it.
I still don't believe that. I still call shenanigans.
But like the technology now with when it comes to space games is having procedural generated environments. So I would like to actually see how how much of that kind of technology they can implement in Mass Effect, and how much of it's going to really be still feeling like you're kind of contained. Because, like, the stuff they showed at E3 made it seem like you're going to go outside the actual, like, so you're going to go, like, pop out beyond it. And maybe even, where the Reapers always hid, in between cycles, dark space is what they called it. So maybe you can explore out to there. That would be interesting.
Yeah, and the funny thing is they might actually do that. Who knows? They only have so much that they can share with us at this time. Hell, I'm happy for these pieces of concept art they gave us. I mean, it's better than nothing. We take what we can get, and we can go with it from there up until we get more. And that's the beauty of it too, is that we got the whole fandom of even just Mass Effect going on about this, coming up with all the different possibilities, already coming up with ideas of what's going to go on. It's gonna be great. I'm definitely excited for the new Mass Effect. I'm obviously not like, oh my god, best game ever, like you like to joke about the way I was about Dragon Age Inquisition. But I am excited to see what they can do with it. I still say, and I'm still standing by the statement, they've yet to make a bad game so far. So we can just go ahead and see what they're going to do.
So let's talk about the writer.
Okay, yes, we did say we are going to come back to this. Well, I forget if they said he was if the head writer or not, but I feel bad because I didn't write his name down. I should have, but it's going to be the lead writer from Halo 4 is going to be one of the major writers of the new Mass Effect game. Yeah.
So let's talk about that here for a moment. Not to say that the story of Halo 4 was bad.
It was just unexpected because of the fact that, sure, there was a story to Halo, but it was mostly just running and gunning. Like there really wasn't a whole lot of character development, and there's like kind of story development that would be the bare minimum you would get in an action film, or in this case, Halo the game. So the fact that they had so much more depth just felt weird to the Halo fan base.
It and
It felt
I
out of
mean,
place, kind of.
yeah, and that's the thing about it. Like, I mean, we're still going to have people from the original game in there, like Mac Walters, which was the lead writer for Mass Effect 3. He's still part of the team. But I mean, that ultimately leads into like my hesitation. Like, I'm not like chomping at the bit to get the new Mass Effect game at this point because, like, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but Drew, the original writer for Mass Effect, he's since moved on to other things. So it I'm excited to see what's going to come, but I'm still kind of in a place where I'm just like, I don't know how to feel about it. I'm